Hello, everybody. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I'm coming to you today because there was some breaking news on the Delphi case of Abby and Libby, the beautiful young girls who were killed by someone. Uh, and it just came to me what the problem with this whole case is going to be. Now, it's supposed to be going to trial in May, and yeah. So I'm going to get into all the things I think are problematic with this case and why I think the chances of Richard Allen getting convicted are slim. Okay. But before I keep going, I want to welcome everybody who's here. They're in the chat room. This happens to be a public live chat. This is something I don't do very often, but I'm going to start doing it a little more often with breaking news because I think it's a nice way to reach out to people, share my channel, and also get when I'm not having to really focus solidly on one particular case, willing to do this. But I do have 8 cases a month. Take that back. 4 cases a month I do on the weekends, one every weekend, specific case. I spend a couple hours analyzing it, and this is for patrons only. And also during the week, I do hangouts for patrons only. If you'd like to be involved, please join Patreon in the link below. You don't have to do it to see any of my videos. They're all public videos. Please do subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Okay? You can support the channel by buying books, clicking the little $sign. And no, I don't do super chat because I don't like people throwing money at me during the show. So that's not happening here. Now, let's get to the issue here. And one of the interesting things I'm expecting in the chat room, because I have opened it up to the public and I have no moderator. So I'm going to say, I'm expecting I might get a lot of people who think Richard Allen is innocent. And just before I went to do the show, Sarah, hello, Sarah, who's under an assumed name. Hi, Sarah. I want to point out your email to me because I thought it was great. She said, can I guess what I think profiler Pat will say about if she thinks Mr. Allen will not be found guilty? I have my thoughts about what you're saying. You will say not because he's not guilty, but because of what's going to be happening in the trial. And she points out something later on in her email, which I think is something I want to discuss during this video. She said, the defense team is ridiculously unethical. Absolutely. And one of the most interesting things about it is that the judge tossed them out, but they are back because the defense team and Richard Allen claimed that was violating his rights not to have the defense team of his choice, regardless of whether they acted ethically or not, whether they broke the rules, whether they did things like leaking information. Unbelievable. So in other words, the defense team can do whatever they damn well please because it's his right to have whomever he wants to represent him. But the prosecution they better cross those T's and dot those I's. Defense team, not so much. And so she's very correct about that. The defense team is ridiculously unethical. Yes, and they've been all over YouTube with all their theories, so which I'll get to in a bit. And she says here, they haven't submitted any proof to support any of the theories. Of course not. They'll do that in the trial, or they'll attempt to do that. I don't even understand. Okay, she's not, well, I don't understand either. But anyway, this is the thing I loved. But there is on one side common sense, logic, and deductive reasoning. I hope that's my side, and I hope that's many of the people who, my patrons and people who want to understand things and see things realistically as opposed to just gossip and all kinds of, reality crime shows and all that stuff. They really want to understand things. I think they're on the side of common sense, logic, and deductive reasoning. Thank you, Sarah. On the other side, you have magical, fantastical sensationalism. She says, and it's just so good, Sarah, I just got to read it. Sensationalism, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, can make a smart man dumb. It feels like people are quicker to embrace sensationalism, and this is quite true, and very slow to accept truth. I think the defensive in their gross negligence of leaking crime scene photos and all the things that they did was terrible, terrible. But she said the truth feels like it is sinking to the bottom of bottom underneath the weight and gaudiness of sensationalism and conspiracy theories. It's sad to see, and it simultaneously angers me. Thank you, Sarah. I think it's brilliantly written. Okay, so starting off with this concept, yes, this here we have the problem. All right, so as this case goes to trial, we have the issue of the jury, and many people who know me they keep telling me I should have some merch that has a T-shirt that says 12 people off a bus stop, because I always say that a civilian jury it's 12 people off a bus stop, and I think that's accurate. 12 people off a bus stop. If you wanted 12 people to determine whether you should fix the brakes on your car and how to do it, I'm pretty sure you'd prefer to have 12 people who understood how to fix brakes. But if you pick 12 people off a bus stop, you get people like me. The only thing I know about brakes is if I put I'm a 2-foot driver when I'm not driving a stick. Anyway, if I put this foot down, the car stops. That's all I know. Do you want me to determine how to fix your brakes? Of course not. If you got 12 people like me, you're screwed. So we would never do that for something like that. If you were going to send a rocket into space, would you get 12 people off a bus stop to determine whether the rocket scientists have done things properly? And you say, that's idiotic. My God, the rocket scientists are PhD geniuses. How would 12 people off a bus stop understand the science of rockets? Well, they don't. And you can have the rocket scientists explain things, but I'm not a rocket scientist either. I would be one of those 12 people off a bus stop. I'm like, I don't know. I'd be guessing. So this is what happens in trials, which is why I want a professional jury system. I keep fighting for this for decades. You get 12 people off a bus stop. Some of them are well-meaning. Some of them love the excitement. Some of them are very logical. Some of them are as illogical as you can possibly get. You just don't know who the hell you get. But in this case, oh my God, considering what I have seen until now, I am going to say this case is in serious trouble. All right, let me get comfortable. I always start with a sweater on because I'm cold, and then I get energized and I get overheated. Anyway, so apparently his defense team was allowed to return, in spite of the fact they're the unethical scumbags that they are. They not only go all over YouTube and give their incredibly odd theories, but they also allowed information to be leaked to the public. This was the Odinist and ruins thing. If you haven't been following this case, I mean, go someplace else because I'm not going to tell the whole story. But the ruins thing, where the bodies of these two girls were laying about, and there were some branches involved laying upon them, and so the ruins concept was that the way that they were laid, some branches were laid upon them, represented Odinist, some Nordic mythological whatever, and that they were examples of some kind of sacrificial kind of crap. And then they came up with the Odinist theory, and the Odinists were this is like some guys running around going, hey, we're really like, we're from Nordic descent, and we believe in, kind of like a lot of people believe in a lot of interesting, not believe, I don't even know if I want to say believe, but you get people who like to be white witches, and they're just involved in kind of some kind of a version of spiritual mythological crap. Not saying it's wrong, but just saying there's people involved in it. It gives them a feeling of some kind of spirituality and whatever. And so supposedly these Odinists killed these girls in a sacrifice, according to the defense team, and left these branches in certain forms, which were like Rorschach tests or nonsense. I will link below all my videos on that nonsense. But they put that out to the public. Do you know what happened? A lot of the public said, oh my God, absolutely, 100%. These are the people going to become those 12 people on a bus stop. So there's a problem here. When you get 12 people off a bus stop, which means that basically, you send out your notices. And by the way, in case you don't know this, I always love to tell people this. If you get the notice for jury duty, just ditch it. You think you have to respond? No, you don't. You know why? It's not sent by certified mail. They can never prove you got it. You can do that. Or you can do what I did one time, which is says, I don't believe in the jury system, so I don't really want to be there because I think all the other people are idiots. And they let me off of the jury duty because I absolutely know, as a profiler, the defense team is never going to let me go on the jury because I actually use logic and profiling skills and crime scene analysis skills. Defense attorney is not going to want me on there. So I will get dumped every time. So it's just a waste of my time. But you can get out of jury duty just like that. But if you do go to jury duty because you feel a sense of wanting to do the right thing, or because you don't mind not working for so many, like 2 months out of your life and not making any money, because jury duty sure doesn't pay you any money. Maybe you're into the drama of it. There's so many different reasons people do jury duty. I don't want to, say mean things about people who want to do jury duty, but it's a variety. Some people want to do the civic duty. Some people just want the reality show. Some people have their issues, but when they get on there, you don't know, do you know anything about the Delphi case? No, I have no clue. Yeah, what do you live under a freaking rock? Probably you know everything about this case. You lying like a dog. They don't give you a polygraph for that. So there's people coming on who have preconceived ideas about the whole case. And this case has been over the media, painted on the media. And the defense has come on onto YouTube shows and everything, pushing their theories. You can't tell me that out of those 12 people, you only need one. That a couple of those people aren't going to say, I think it's the Odinists. I think it was a ritual sacrifice. I think this guy's been set up. I think blah, blah, blah. All right. Let me go through some of the concepts of that. All right. So, really? Okay. Somebody said something. Oh, see, this is why I don't usually. Okay. Rapper. Hi, rapper. Let's see. Band user. All right. Well, I'm going to do that. Somebody wrote me, Pat, sorry to bother you during your live stream, but the rapper is writing the N word over and over again in the chat room and threatening to use other accounts if you block him. I just blocked you, rapper. I don't know who the hell you are, but this is why I don't do many public lives and why I don't do them during most of my shows. The reason I wanted to do it today specifically is because I want to see how many people think he's innocent. I think they're going to come out. I'm not going to stop people from coming out to say he's innocent. I want to see the pro Odinist and pro whatever. Let's see. Who else we got here? Thank you, who sent me that information. That was really, really nice of you. Thank you. That was cool. All right. There are people. Let me stop here for a second just to talk about. I'm not actually answering every questions yet or comments. I can't even see that. That's why I don't do public lives very often, because things fly through like this. You can't even keep track of it. But okay, so here's what happened, and here's what I want to point out why I think the chances of Richard Allen being convicted are slim. Sarah, you're correct. Do I think he's guilty? Absolutely. From what I know now, when I say absolutely, I say this outside of a court of law. If I were if I were on a professional jury and everybody presented the information to me, I might find myself thinking differently. Just to be fair, maybe I would say, well, the prosecution didn't put out the proper information, and the defense has come up with something good. I'm not on the jury, so I cannot say what I would say if I, in fact, were in, actually in the court. So far, I tend to think, let me put it this way. I tend to think he's guilty. Let me rephrase. I tend to think he's guilty. All right. But what do I see happening? Okay. what happened today was this very interesting thing. This is what came out today, which is what generated my interest in this. The defense claims the initial police interviews with the men they believe are behind the murders and other places they say the key suspects, the key witnesses. And you think I'm doing the air quotes for no reason? No, every single media outlet says key suspects, key witnesses. The reason they're saying key suspects like this is because we don't know that they're really key suspects. This is the defense's claims. All right. They claim that the initial police interviews with the men they believe, the men, more than one. Okay, here's a problem right away. A lot of people that I've seen who may end up on that 12 people from a bus stop believe that these two girls couldn't have been killed by one man. It had to be more than one. It's absolute nonsense. I can't tell you how many cases I know that one person can control more than one person. If he is the guy you see saying down the hill, you know, when somebody's pointing a gun at you, you go down the hill. That's why he's got a kidnapping charge. And then you get into a location and you say, lay on the ground. You tell the girls, if one of you screws up, I will kill the other. And now you have total control. You don't even need to shoot the gun. You've got total control. I have seen serial killers control 4 people in a room, including males, because once you threaten somebody, other people comply. I mean, if somebody came in, like, you know, I'm a pretty strong woman, I think. But if somebody comes in and threatens my granddaughter, lady, if you don't comply, I will slit your granddaughter's throat and rape her. People say I don't show much emotion and I laugh too much. But that whole thought, it's my granddaughter. I will comply like you wouldn't believe, because it's my granddaughter. These 2 girls loved each other. They're friends. You tell one of them you could kill the other. They'll comply like you wouldn't believe. It does not need 2 people. You only need one person to control a scene. And it's nonsense. You need 2. But hey, the defense attorney is going to point that out. Hey, it couldn't have been done by one guy. It's clearly the Odinist or whatever they're going to come up with. 2 people at least to control the scene. Maybe Keegan Kline and his daddy. Oh, you know, Keegan Kline. He's a little pervert guy who did contact these girls and say, hey, you know, and then he got arrested and charged, and they did think he might have something to do with this, but he's a little fat dude who sits in the basement and, you know, probably never ever meets anybody and just jacks off. You know what I mean? So, and then his dad, Tony, I think it was Tony Kline. Excuse me for if I misremember names. But anyway, some people say the 2 of them were involved. There's no evidence that 2 of them were ever at the scene. And it's one of those things, though, that's going to work in the courtroom. Because the defense loves to put forth alternative suspects. The police never investigated properly. These Keegan Kline, he was in contact with the girls who wanted to meet them there. Of course he did it. Of course his daddy was involved, blah, 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 blah. And it's pretty compelling for a jury that doesn't understand necessarily how things work, that, you know, sometimes there are, you know, people say there's no such thing as, you know, coincidences. I don't know who promoted that crap, but in my years of work, I've seen so many coincidences, you can't believe it. Coincidences happen all the time. Keegan Kline's a slime ball, a little fat slime ball who probably never has sex in his life. His daddy wasn't kind of questionable too. That they yes, he completely was a red herring in this crime, messed everything up. And this also has an issue with the original investigative team. I mean, they had to deal with this guy and the possibility that he did it. They were like searching rivers for knives and all this kind of stuff. It wasn't him. It wasn't him, and it wasn't his daddy either. But man, you can use that in court like you wouldn't believe. So this week, this is what the defense team claims. The initial police interviews with the men they believe were behind the murders. Is that the Keegans? Oh, what about Ron Logan? Remember old good old Ron Logan? He's dead. The girls were found on the edge of his property. Ron Logan, he's got a little questionable history. Oh my God, it could have been Ron Logan. But I think they're aiming still for the Odinists. I don't know what they're aiming for. But they're saying the men they believe are behind the murders happened between the time of the bodies were found on February 14th and February 20th. So you have 6 days. And when I do this 6, by the way, that is sign language. Sorry, this is not 3, it's 6 in sign language. According to the defense, the loss of this evidence could greatly impact Allen's defense as key evidence, which was potentially lost. All the defense has are the transcripts from the police that they claim lack police questions and potentially other statements. So what happened was, theoretically, okay, they were supposed to videotape the people they were interviewing. And they did, but unfortunately got like there was a glitch and it got overwritten. And so those days went missing. Now, the police still wrote their notes down, but hey, the police, they don't know what they're doing. And so they're claiming that because those videotapes were overwritten, that therefore it's a cover-up. And that their defense has been destroyed because the real persons who did this, the people who really killed these 2 girls, were interviewed in the very first days. And there's a truth to that many times. The person who actually was involved in the crime is interviewed in early days. So they're like leaning on that to make a big deal, because you can actually say, statistically, that's true. They're saying, oh, those guys were interviewed and all that's missing. And you just got some little scribbles from some detectives. We don't think that's very important. So because of that, our alternative suspects were never looked at properly. Now, this is a big deal for the Innocence Project, which I'm pretty sure if he ever gets convicted, the Innocence Project will show up within years, and they'll say he's innocent, and they'll say there were alternative suspects that were never looked at. We see that with Adnan Syed. We see that in so many cases, even Scott Peterson. Oh my God, it could be the guys who were robbing a house. All the evidence points to Scott Peterson, but let's just point out some guys who were robbing a house. So this is a new technique that the defense is using, that if alternative suspects aren't hounded, aren't completely investigated, then you can't accuse this guy of committing the crime because you never investigated the other suspects. Well, the reason a lot of other suspects aren't interviewed is because they're not really suspects. The police look at them and go, yeah, nothing. You're not going to spend hundreds of hours on somebody you don't believe is involved in the crime. But the new methodology is to say, hey, they should have done it. They only have so much manpower and money. They focus on where it makes sense. They obviously, if they didn't think some crazy people or whatever said something, they're not going to focus on them. So this whole concept that because, and during those days, some tapes were recorded over, in spite of the fact there were still people writing all the details down, they're going to use that. And what they're going to say is that the police are corrupt. One of the claims is that they became desperate over the years because, my God, this case was horrible. It was all over the media, which is true. And they're being pressured to solve the case. And finally, they just found a patsy. I'm going to say, if they're going to find a patsy, Keegan Klein was the patsy they should have found. Nobody liked Keegan Kline. Keegan Kline was a pervert. Keegan Kline was guilty of being on the internet luring in girls. Keegan Kline even made a date to lure in the girls. I mean, come on now. You want a patsy? Pick Keegan Kline, not this guy. Nobody even knew about him. This guy was a fellow about town. People knew him. They thought he was perfectly fine. They're not going to pick a guy with zero criminal background when they could have gone for somebody easier. This makes no sense. The reason they went after Richard Allen is because he was at the location or near the location at the time it happened and confessed that. Now, and he looks like the guy who said down the hill. That's why they ended up eventually focusing on him, and with a lot more evidence than that. However, one, erasure of videotapes. The defense is going to put that in court, and they're going to say to the jury, those 12 people off a bus stop, look, you don't want to put an innocent guy in prison. They erased all these things, even if it was accidental. They covered our key suspects. We cannot even present to you properly because they erased the tapes. That's reasonable doubt. That's what they're going to go for. Keegan Kline is going to be reasonable doubt. The Odinists, if you don't know the Odinists, look at my previous videos linked below. The Odinist, oh my God, some Nordic people who have some, whatever they want to have their own spiritual little world. Okay, fine. But when the girls' bodies were found, some branches were found in certain places. Oh my God, those are all ritual things. They're runes. It's all nonsense. But they're going to present that. And do you know how many people up till now, and maybe in this chat room, which I haven't looked at yet, guys, because I can't do two things at one time. That's why I left the chat room open to public. I want to see how many people come in and say, oh my God, no, it was clearly the Odinist. It was clearly, you could see the runes on their body. It was clearly Ron Logan, the guy who was now dead, whose their bodies were found on the edge of his property. It's clearly Ron Logan. It's clearly Keegan Kline. You see how many alternate suspects the defense has. And if you have people in here, just, I don't know, because I haven't looked at it yet, just saying, absolutely, it could be somebody else. What the heck is this guy back for? I thought I locked this guy out. Okay, he's back here. Put him in. The rapper dude is back. Now you see why I don't do publics too often. But I wanted to see how many people came in through here, and I will look in a little bit, who believe he's innocent because it's the Odinists, because the runes are clearly cult things, because Ron Logan actually did it, because it's really Keegan Kline and his daddy. If you have that many people in a chat room who believe that kind of crap, how many of those 12 people off a bus stop, all you need is one. Just say, I think it's Keegan Kline. You just need one to say, I think it's the Odinist, and you're doomed. He'll go free. Now, I want to point out a couple other things before I go to some of your comments. What is the other issues that have been brought up? All right. So the thing today was that they lost that. Now, why did they lose that? I've worked at police departments enough to know that life is not perfect. Police departments do the best jobs they can, and sometimes it isn't. Some smaller departments, some whatever, the overwhelming amount of stuff that's coming in, sometimes they don't do as good a job as you would like. Doug Carter, Superintendent Doug Carter, I have some things to say about him. Doug Carter, again, I'll try to link the videos below. Doug Carter said a bunch of nonsensical crap for so long. I kept saying, please be quiet. Please just don't say anything anymore. He didn't make anything look good for the police that were working on the case. He made them look like idiots. And that's why I objected to what he said. Now, mind you, he might be a fun guy and a great guy to go have a beer with, but he was making the police department look stupid. And because he's kind of a blowhard, and he liked to be he loved the attention. And this is in the beginning, it was a local police department. They aren't used to this kind of stuff happening. And, so in the early hours when this just happened, that they interviewed, I don't know who they interviewed, but gosh knows, people, they interviewed different kinds of people. They're doing the best they can. There's no corruption. They're not trying to do anything wrong. They're just doing the best they can. They're a small department. So that whole concept that the defense is going to play to the end of the earth, that massive incompetence and all that is going to be a problem in this case. And then next thing is going to be a huge problem is the evidence. All right. So what is the evidence? Well, the big one is the issue of the the bullet was not fired. Okay. They found a bullet at the scene. Okay. They found a bullet at the scene. Now, what was that bullet? That bullet was not fired through his gun, but it matched the ammo in his house and it matched his gun. What does that mean? Okay. The girls weren't shot. So the person who said down the hill had a gun was saying down the hill was to control them. Now that he could have, and one bullet came out of the gun unfired is not unreasonable. He was still trying to control them and scare them. However, they found, the bullet was found at the scene. Now the problem is there's a whole bunch of issues of how it was found, when it was found, and what condition it was found, blah, blah, blah. So there's two issues here. One is what the defense team is going to say immediately, that it was planted. Well, first of all, it makes no sense it was planted because they didn't even know Richard Allen existed till later. So, it was found earlier on. It wasn't found after they picked on him. So they had a bullet from the scene. Could it have been there for 6 months? Absolutely. That's what the defense is going to say. Could it have been dropped there by somebody 3 days before? Absolutely. The problem is it wasn't fired. But they got that. They went to his house, and now the defense is saying they didn't have a proper search warrant, but they got the gun, and they're like, okay, he's got the same ammo for the gun, and they got a tool mark expert. Now, when you don't fire, you don't have an actual bullet fired through a gun. If it's fired, then you can check more like the striations and see that it matches exactly the firing. It's a lot of information. But when it's not been fired, but been in the gun, you got some marks. And they will bring in what's called a tool mark expert. And now it's going to be called junk science. You got, as I've already said, it's just one guy's opinion. Well, it is somebody's opinion that those marks match. If you put it in that gun, the little scratches would match what's on the unfired bullet. Okay. Now what do you got? You got an opinion about tool mark evidence, which a lot of people say is junk science. I think that's not going to go well with the jury. Why? Because once you say junk science and you get somebody up there just trashing it, they're going to say that bullet is useless. Or it could be planted. It could have been planted by the police. I don't think that's going to hold water. I think it's useful information, but I think a lot of people aren't going to think so. So that's going to be probably chucked out by the people in the jury are not going to find that highly important. So what they're going to look at is his confession. He confessed in a number of ways. And then the defense is going to say he was pressured, he was under whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to look at GPS, whether he said he was in the area. So it's not a question he was actually on the path, but was he near where the girls were? And they're looking at different towers. How well that's going to go is another question. And what the jury is going to believe is another question. What did they find in the house besides that? Did they find anything else of worth? Now, there's a lot of people think they found some more stuff that the defense is not admitting to and the prosecution has. Gosh, I hope that's true. I hope the prosecution, when they went to his house, found more things to link him to the crime that would be irrefutable. Well, I haven't heard about them. I don't know that they exist. At this point, what I see is a bullet they're probably, I don't believe the jury is going to be all that impressed by. I believe that his confessions are questionable, that he was in the area. Oh, so what? Do I think the totality of the evidence points to this guy? Absolutely. But again, 12 people of a bus stop, all you need is one that thinks the Odinist did it. Ron Logan did it. Somebody else kept, Keegan Klein did it. That's all you need. You need reasonable doubt. Now, reasonable doubt is different from a shadow of a doubt. But I think in this case, we're not talking about a shadow of a doubt. We're talking about a whole lot of stuff the defense is going to throw at the jury. It's going to make them have reasonable doubt. I hope the prosecution has more to work with before they go before a jury. Now, if it's a professional jury, I might not worry so much. Professional jury, in case you don't know what I mean by that, like 5 people, 7 people that are trained as crime scene analysts like myself, who are picked, not, just randomly to be on a case, a homicide case. So all of a sudden there's 5 to 7 professional jurors and they're able to look at the case and make determinations rather than 12 people who have no training whatsoever and can be hoodwinked by any defense attorney out there. Like Jose Baez, he's really good. I'm concerned. These girls, they suffered a terrible death. And we saw the guy on the bridge going down the hill. We know what they went through. And that guy should be in prison forever or get the death penalty. But he should definitely never be out in the world again. Because that kind of person who do this is a serial killer. Whether he's done it before or do it afterwards is another matter. But that's something horrific beyond belief. I think the evidence points to Richard Allen, but I'm not very sure that he's ever going to get convicted in a court of law in a state where everybody knows what happened. Everybody's heard everything on the internet. And all you need is one person who says, I think it's the Odinist. I'm going to answer some of your questions now. I'm just trying to see if I missed anything. Not majorly. Okay, so let me see what I can say. Clarissa says he's killed more than these 2. Generally speaking, by the time you kill 2 girls like that, you think there's something in the background. You would. But at this point, we don't have any proof of that, so can't go there. Miranda says, Richard Allen admitted to wearing the same clothes as the man on the bridge because he was the man on the bridge. Good point, Miranda. But you see, you have to understand how defense attorneys work. The defense attorney gets in there and he says to the jury, well, this is a very common outfit. Sure, he admits to that because why shouldn't he admit he wore what he wore? But then many other people wear such a similar thing. Just because he wore this doesn't mean that he's the killer. You see, I can even do this and I'm not even a defense attorney. Maybe he says, agree, evidence points to Richard Allen, as does his jail statement, which didn't even bother to include that he was innocent. You would think that's enough. Believe me, if he is guilty, I want nothing more than this 12 people to find him guilty. I want to, I think I just have a bad feeling about this. I have a feeling it's slim that they're going to find him guilty. I want to be wrong. I do. I don't think I'm wrong in my analysis. I just want to be wrong in my trust of the jury system. And I also want to be wrong that if he's found guilty, that the Innocence Project is going to rear its little ugly head and rush in to say he's innocent, because there's so many things there they can pick on, which are technicalities and things like that. I can't see the Innocence Project not rolling in to get him off at some point in the future. And by the time, 10 years goes by, 15 years, he's been in prison, nobody cares. Nobody pays attention anymore. Suddenly the Innocence Project rolls in, and behind the scenes, they suddenly get his case dismissed and doesn't even go back to court, but now he's a free man. And he's called innocent. Now, again, hasn't been proven guilty yet. I'm very much looking forward to what's going to be presented in court. I really am. I'm very curious if they have more from the House. I just want to know what they have. So somewhere, I'm not a trial follower because it takes a whole lot of time, but at some point in May, when they start doing that, I will look at specific points and I may come back and comment on specific points. This is interesting. Wait a minute. Alt del alt. Okay. We don't have regular people jury in Finland. They are law-educated professionals doing the case, but still here the justice system is not good. It's unbelievably lenient in serious violent crimes. Interesting. That is fascinating. Well, at least I think you got half of it right. I think we need trained people. No, I don't like the judge system with 1 or 2 or 3 judges just because they're like lawyers who are like really top of the system. I want to see trained people, like lawyers will be trained, doctors will be trained. There will be people like me going to school to be trained as crime scene analysts, criminal profiles, and they would then get a job as a jurist. I would love to be on a jury if I got paid for the crap. I'm not going to sit there for whatever they're not going to pay me for, weeks on end. But if I were being paid and I could analyze the case and be with other people who I thought were credible and had training, I would find this a very useful job. Why they're so lenient is a whole nother question. Okay, thank you. Okay, Snarky says, we're talking about, what's his face? What's his name? Ron Logan. R.A.? Who's R? Wait a minute. Who's R.A.? I'm losing it here. Who's R.A.? Has been thoroughly investigated. There's nothing that ties him to the murder. Oh, Richard Allen. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about Ron Logan. Thank you, Snarky Angel. Okay. You think that Richard Allen has been thoroughly investigated. He has been. And he's been charged with kidnapping and murder. And there's nothing that ties him to the murders. Really? Why not? Because the defense says so? See, this is why I want to do kind of the public show today. Sorry, R.A. means Richard Allen. I was thinking of Ron Logan, R.L. All right. I don't know why you have to say R.A. Just write Richard Allen. Type more. But see, this is what I'm saying. People are going to come in here, and this kind of person who says he's been thoroughly investigated and there's nothing that ties him to the murders is a lie. It's a lie. Now, there is evidence which supports probable cause and the arrest and the charges. Now, the defense may come in and disprove those, but that is not true. That he's been thoroughly investigated. It's nothing. If there's nothing tied to the murders, he would not have been charged with the murders. But this is a person who's going to be one of the 12. That's why I think we're in trouble. All right. How is there no DNA? Okay, I don't know. I don't know. Some of the things, people want perfection in the world. Everything just falls into place like it does on television. It doesn't work that way. I don't know what he did to these girls, if he did them. If he's the guy who did it, I don't know exactly what he did to them because that has not been information. It's been public. I don't know the entire autopsy results of these girls. I don't know what they know. Some people who kill do not leave DNA evidence. But the point is, if there's no DNA evidence, doesn't mean he didn't do it. It doesn't. We have no DNA of them matching anybody. But I don't know yet. I don't know. I'm not going to go through the rows of what evidence points to him. Where have you been? Under the rock that you're going to claim when you become a juror? Oh my goodness. Let's see. Yeah, there is that, Harper. And again, he was talking to his wife and all that. And I won't get into I'm not going to get into the entire details of everything that's ever happened. I'm just trying to talk about what I think is problematic. The problem with confessions is whether they're false confessions or not, whether they're pressure confessions. Well, if he's talking to his wife, it's not a pressure confession. So that's much better than if you were confessing to the police. But that doesn't mean that the defense can't find a way to explain that away. And this is what happens. And when you get a jury that doesn't understand psychology or psychopathy, or how things work, they're like, oh, that could be true. Maybe he just wanted his wife to go away. He said, okay, fine, I killed him. And he just said that so that she would just go away and not visit him again because he wanted to release her. I can come up with a million stories. If I were on a defense team, I won't work on a defense team, but I can come up with a million stories, and it kind of works, sometimes. Will the judge's actions have any influence on his guilt or innocence? I know. First, I'm a profiler. I'm not a legal analyst. I'm not an attorney. But I can tell you this. The judge is not an impartial person, although they're supposed to be. The judge, by their decisions and by the way they handle things, do influence the jury. Also, when they give the jury instructions and all that stuff, they do have influence. And then that is often used by, like the Innocence Project, the judge actually improperly influenced the jury. Just even the demeanor can make a difference. So it's tough being a judge, and it's tough being an impartial judge. So do they sometimes? Oh, what do you get? Oh, $40 a day. Woo-hoo! Yeah. It's unbelievably poor. It's poor in the U.S. too. It's insane. It's like, okay, you're supposed to dump your job. The job is supposed to keep you employed while you're off for 2 months on this kind of a case. And then there's other people can't take care of their children. Everybody has their excuses. And then there are people who don't have any excuses, and they don't want to have any because they really want to be on the jury because they're excited about it. And so it's a very complicated situation where you get people with the best of heart, why they want to just do their just do their duty as a you're a citizen. You want to do your duty. And then there's others who just love the reality show and they get a kick out of it. That's not why you're supposed to be on a jury. If I were on a professional jury, I want to see justice done. I want to understand the evidence and make sure that it's being presented properly, that the conclusion comes out of properly analyzing the evidence. I would have no concern whether the person was guilty or innocent before I came in. I didn't need to do it for the glory. I didn't need to do it because it's exciting and I had nothing else to do that day. I'd be getting paid, so I wouldn't be angry. That's why I believe in professional jury. You have to have enough of the professionals on the jury not to make it like just a little club. And you have to make it, where, basically your name gets picked out of a hat. I'm not saying there's not there couldn't be some problems with a professional jury. Some people think they can be bribed, but civilian juries can be bribed too. So it's so complicated. It's so hard to ever come up with an absolute answer on that. Charlotte says, now I got the RA down. Sorry, I'm a person who types things through, so I have a real hard time with the little, abbreviations. Richard Allen was there on the bridge at the time. He was wearing, I don't know that we know he was on the bridge at the time. I think that's jumping a little bit further. He was around the area at the time. And maybe he was at the bridge at some point, but not exactly. We can't say he was there necessarily at the exact time the girls were there, although he could be a bridge guy, but we don't have proof that he is. He was wearing the same clothes. He has confessed to his mother and wife and ate his paperwork. His defense are playing a blinder. I agree with the rest of that. But again, here's the problem. It's not about whether the evidence ever will build up to a proper prosecution. It depends on the jury. And anybody can let Casey Anthony go. Can it be hoodwinked? Let's put it, and O.J. Simpson. Silas says powder packs they recovered. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's, they recovered several knives in search of his house, but are yet to find out if those knives are linked. And that we don't know. Obviously, the girls were stabbed. There was a knife involved. And people say, well, if you had a gun, why would a knife be involved? Well, of course, you carry both. The gun is to control. The knife is to kill and to enjoy close up. Now, any smart killer will get rid of the knife. So the knife may not exist anymore. Having not used the gun, you might have thought, I'm not getting rid of my nice gun. It's amazing how people actually don't get rid of the weapons they use in crimes because they like them. It's like, man, this is a nice knife. I'll just wash it up. This is a great gun. I paid money for this. It's amazing how many people get caught with their actual weapons because they're cheapskates. You'd think, hey, I killed 2 people. Maybe I should just dump the weapon and we'll go buy another. I'm not like poor. You'd be surprised. Also, it's a little bit of a trophy, because that's the one. So sometimes that's true. Let's see. And some of these things I can't answer because I'm not going to get into all. A lot of you have questions about the crime scene. I'm not going to get into all that today. I have discussed some of those things, and I'm not doing here a full analysis of every single piece of evidence at this point. I just want to point out the issues that we're looking at today. So some of these things I won't comment on. Not that they're not a reasonable question. I just can't comment on them. Exactly, Pat. The ideal system will require professionalism and excellent justice lines and / rules. Problem is, if the law practice is not fitted properly, if seriousness is not showing in convictions at all, it's a mess. I mean, everybody, it's funny because being a U.S. citizen, I don't know how long I've heard, oh my God, the U.S. has the best criminal justice system in the world and the best. And I'm like, what world are you living in? I think the intentions are good. The concept of the civilian jury system originally was that we don't want people who are in connection with the powers that be railroading people and killing them. And, back in, go back from the 1900s to 1800s and all that stuff. I see the point. But, also, so the idea was if somebody gets arrested from your area, and is in court, then you have the jury of your peers. I'm like, what the hell are your peers? I mean, because I'm a Caucasian female in her 60s, are my peers Caucasian females in their 60s? Why can't they be not Caucasian? Why can't they be younger people? Why can't they be male? What makes them my damn peers? Did anybody ask me if they're my peers? Because a lot of people who look like me don't like me. You know what I mean? They're not like me at all. I don't really, quite frankly, want to look out in the jury box and go, oh my God, I'm doomed. Because it's not about race. It's not about gender. It's not about age. There's culture. There's all kinds of things involved. What makes them your peers? I think back in the day, what they were trying to say is if you were in the court in a certain area, you wanted people who at least were anti you to be in the court to be sure that you were being properly not being railroaded. I get it, but times have gone on, and that's not the way things are anymore. And on top of that, we've got so much. The technical aspect of crimes has gotten so difficult that most of the juries, in spite of the fact they've watched CIS, NCIS, they've watched all the shows, even mine, and think they understand how things work. They don't often understand how things work. So that's why they do. Some of them are like their hearts are in the right place, are doing their damned best, but they just don't understand a thing called the totality of the evidence, to understand how the evidence, both physical and circumstantial, plays together. Just don't get it. They do their best. And sometimes at a certain point, first of all, they're sitting in the court for so long, they're falling asleep. They're bored out of the Kentuckys. I don't know if that's a word. Kentuckys? They're bored to death. And they're falling asleep, trying to stay, because sometimes they spend hours like, Dr. So-and-so, when did you get your credentials? Nobody really cares. And so they get so tired. And then they get overwhelmed with too much information. And then it's amazing because they have these experts coming in and this day-long stuff, and they expect regular people to be able to understand all the experts. They have The experts have PhDs, but they're supposed to know more than the experts. And then they're supposed to be able to understand whether their credentials are appropriate or not. And then they're supposed to sit through all the boredom and all the fighting. And these people are regular people going, they're supposed to figure out above all everybody else if that person's guilty or not. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. Absolutely insane. Why would these people you picked off a bus stop be able to determine more than the experts, the defense people, the prosecution, everybody they presented? How would they know more and be able to have a better understanding to the point where they can make life and death decisions? It's just nonsense. It's so crazy. I can't believe it keeps going on. But the logic of a civilian jury system is, there is no logic, and it just drives me nutty. Oh my goodness. $25 a day. Another exciting amount of money. You can here's the problem. You can theorize all kinds of stuff. If we don't have evidence, Richard Allen may have, thank you for writing Richard Allen out, bought a device or passwords to catfish them. He knew the girls were going to be there and showed up prepared. I don't know that there's any evidence of this. So this is a problem. So you have to make sure that you have evidence before you theorize. Maybe the dude just liked to walk the path a lot, and he walked the path that day, and he finally got lucky. A lot of serial killers, they look for just a moment, of opportunity, and they may look for a month and never get anybody, but that one day that they find somebody alone, that's the day. It only takes a very short little window of opportunity, and they can then enact what they've always wanted to enact. He may have carried, if he is guilty, he may have carried that gun and knife with him for months before he got the opportunity. So I don't know that he had any kind of electronic. It could be possible. I just don't know. And I try to only base conclusions on something I know. Kat says, hi, Kat. Circumstantial evidence is evidence. Yes, it is. But it doesn't do well with the jury. I can't tell you how badly it does with a jury. People don't understand circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is evidence. And he did admit going to the bridge. And there was a witness that saw someone matching his description. Yes. But the defense attorney will tear that into shreds. They'll say the witness saw a different person. He admitted to being near the area, but he went to the bridge, but not at the time the girls were there, blah, 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 blah. Circumstantial evidence is evidence. Behavioral evidence is evidence. And that's, again, what I talk about, the totality of the evidence. You have over here, might have physical evidence, but you add to that all the other stuff. Let me tell you, let's see, a circumstantial evidence issue. Let's say a woman suspects that her husband is cheating on her. Why? Because they haven't had sex in 3 months. And she wonders why. That's interesting. It's not proof of anything. But she notices that he doesn't come home from the office on time anymore. Usually comes home by 5 o'clock, but he seems to be staying late a lot. That begins to say, she's starting to add that in. And now he's working out a lot. He's lost 20 pounds. He's looking much better. He's buying new clothes. She's like, why is he all of a sudden looking so nice? And now and his cell phone, he keeps leaving the room with his cell phone and hiding, like in the bathroom or someplace else. When he's talking on the cell phone, she's like, wonder who he's talking to. Okay, these are all great pieces of evidence. And then there's some witnesses who thought they saw him outside of a Motel 6 with his secretary. And she's like, oh, okay, that's pretty good witness evidence. But again, maybe not enough. One day, she's at home and she finds in his pants, because she's searching through everything, she finds in his pants some condoms, the pack with 3 condoms, and one is missing. And she says, wait a minute, I can't get pregnant. Why does he have condoms? We haven't used a condom in 10 years. And why is one missing? Now, you could say there's zero evidence that he was with his secretary in Motel 6 at any point in time. So unless there's a video camera videoing them exactly in the Motel 6, there's no proof he was there. But there's a whole lot of circumstantial and behavioral evidence that says he was there, and that's what he was doing. Now, this is the problem. When you get into a court of law, what the defense attorney will do is strike down every one of those things. He will say the witness is full of shit. The witness didn't actually see them. Just because he wants to look better doesn't mean he's cheating on her. Because he goes into another room with the phone just means that she's a wife that's obnoxiously, overseeing everything he does, and he just wants to get away from her. And those condoms. Well, it's true that she couldn't get pregnant, and he did buy some condoms, but he only bought the condoms with the concept that one day, if everything went badly with the relationship, then he would have them available. And yes, there was one missing, but that's because he just hadn't used one in so many years he wanted to try it on. This is how the defense will work. And then the jury is going, well, it's not proof that he had sex with the secretary. Sometimes you can add to that actual physical, really good physical evidence, but all you have to do is put doubt in the jury's mind, and the defense is very good at that. And again, there's a difference between reasonable doubt and a shadow of a doubt. Reasonable doubt is when you take all the evidence together, there's still enough doubt that you just say, hey, I can't find him guilty. A shadow of a doubt is a stupid thing, which says, well, the totality of the evidence points to this guy, totality of it, everything. But who knows? Maybe he was on the path. Maybe he actually saw the girls. Maybe he was wearing the same clothes. Maybe he was the guy with the gun who said down the hill, but then he changed his mind and ran away. And some other guy jumped out of the woods and killed them. That's your shadow of a doubt. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that shadow of a doubt thingy rolling up. Linda, I know who you are because you said to me on one of my emails, Small Potatoes clinical writer. No, you're not. Nobody's Small Potatoes. I appreciate anybody who is a clinical writer. A nullification with the amateur bus stop can happen out of someone's or out of someone's psychotic power control tendencies. Well, here's the bus stop thing. The problem is we don't know what situation the person is in. They can come in with prejudices. They can come in. Some people think they're psychic and will say, and they'll go into actually thinking that they'll actually go to a trial and use their psychic abilities to determine whether the person's guilty or not. The problem is they're not vetted. They're vetted. People say, they're vetted. They stand up and then the prosecution and defense decides whether they want to let them into court. Well, as a criminal profiler, why doesn't the defense ever want to let me into court? Why not? When I'm one of the more educated people, trained people for this job, because he knows I'll look at the evidence. He wants me the hell out of there. So they'll pick somebody who has less ability. The prosecution fights to try to get people in there that they think are reasonable. And then the defense does everything they can do to get the most unreasonable people possible. And the defense knows they only need how many, guys? I'm just going to wait for your answer. How many does the defense need? They're vetting 12 people. How many people do they actually need? We are all vultures. I remember you, Vulture. Almost 50,000. Yeah, I was here before 12,000. I knew Pat would find her corner of the YouTube. I try to stay ethical. I try to stay educational, and actually very much slower than some people on YouTube. But I'm very pleased that I've reached a point where my channel is sustainable. So I'm very happy about that. That is for sure. Okay. I want to point this out. Saska's got a good point. Yeah. We do know that experts often don't agree, especially the one the prosecution put up and the one the defense put up. Don't you wonder? Now this drives me crazy. So here you're on the jury. And by the way, I have a heart for the jury. I'm not anti the jury. I'm not anti the jury people themselves. I'm anti the system. So now here I am. I'm on the jury. And I'm trying to do my damn best to understand these, to try to figure out, again, as I point out, the prosecution puts on an expert with a PhD. The defense puts on an expert with a PhD. And here I sit. And I have a bachelor's in early childhood education. Nothing wrong with that, because I might be the best person for early childhood education and taking care of children. Now I have an expert in forensics, PhD, Dr. So-and-so. And we get 3 hours of how brilliant he is. And then we have the defense guy, Dr. So-and-so. And we've seen some of these guys are very famous guys too, show up, especially for the defense, because they pay lots more than the prosecution. So you get these two. So now you sit here and you go, okay, the prosecution's witness, Mr. Expert number one, Dr. So-and-so, goes, the blood spatter pattern clearly tells us that not this guy, but, in a different case, the defendant shot the woman, da-da-da. And you sit there and you go, well, that makes sense. And then the defense PhD forensic witness comes out and says, that's nonsense. The blood spatter pattern proves that the woman shot herself. And now you sit here and you go, who the hell do I believe? Who the hell they're not agreeing. They're 100% opposite. They're opposite, completely opposite. How is this possible? If they're both experts looking at the same exact blood spatter pattern, how can they have two different opinions? Believe the science. What science? What science are we talking about? This guy says his science tells him this. This guy says this science tells him that. What the heck? Is there no science at all then? Because if two people could disagree to that level, then it's all bunk. That guy's giving an opinion. That guy's giving an opinion. This guy's paid whatever. This guy's paid whatever. This guy's usually paid more. So what the hell do you do then? This is why I will say, because you're correct, experts often don't agree. And in court, they never agree. They're always opposite, exactly opposite. That's why I believe in a professional jury system, because at least if I'm sitting there and I hear that expert story and I hear this expert story, guess what? I have actually spent time studying forensics, and I can see who the lying dog is, who got paid more, who is making no sense. That's why I believe in professional jury. At least it gives you a chance, where the civilian jury is sitting there going, who the hell do I believe? When they're two experts we just heard 3 hours on each one of them, how great they are in total disagreement. Both of them cannot be right. One of them is a lying dog. But which one is it? All right. Oh, did he do that one? Yeah, I know. Nikki, didn't he check himself into rehab right after? I think that's true, the mental illness thing. Yeah. Honest to God, I have to be fair about this. I'm not writing a book on this case, and I haven't been following this case for months. Right in the beginning, I knew a lot more. I do not know so much now because I don't have hundreds of hours to follow this unless I'm working on this case for somebody, or I'm writing a book or doing something. A lot of this stuff I have forgotten. Many of you actually know more than me because you're really interested in this case. You're following this. I'm not doing so much. So just to let you know, I'm mostly looking at the issues in this case as a profiler. When I'm analyzing it here is the issue about how it's going to go in court. Later on, I may get back into the evidence issues when the case comes to trial. Oh, I've done that. As Wendy Murphy, prosecutor Wendy Murphy said the other day on Twitter, and I'm a friend of Wendy's, and she said she was talking about Karen Reed and her turtle. And I burst out laughing. I have, if you actually put in any case you're interested in, go to the search engine on YouTube, put in Profiler Pat Brown, and whatever you're interested in. Somebody just said, I wish you would do the Chandra Levy case. Put in Profiler Pat Brown and Chandra Levy, click, you'll come up with the fact I already did it. I have already done stuff on Karen Reed and Turtle Boy. Yes, indeed. I'm looking forward to that trial. Although I do not watch trials simply because I don't have the time. And so, but I try to catch up on the major points of the trials. Um, okay, that's a good question. If there's not a sexual assault, then what could the motive be? Okay. Sexual assault is an interesting thing. I don't know exactly what the autopsies have said. I don't know what happened. Power and control is the reason that serial killers and a person who would go and kill two girls is likely what you would call a serial killer, even if we don't know what he's done before or what he would have done after. If it's not a revenge crime because he has some issues with these two, which it would make no sense, why would somebody do that? The thrill is power and control. It's not the sexual assault. People think that sexual assaults are about sex. They're never about sex. You can get, hey, this guy's got a wife at home. He's got sex whenever he wants it. Well, at least when she goes along with it. Most guys can get sex of some sort, whether it be paying for it or watching porn and having sex by themselves. But they can get something, okay? So why would they rape and murder? Now, a lot of guys who rape, many times people are shocked to find out they have wives or girlfriends, and they clearly can get sex. It's not about sex. It's about power and control. Now, one of the reasons sex is used a lot of times in a murder like or a sexual, what we call sexual homicide, is because sex is a way of humiliating and torturing the victim who does not want to have sex with you. So having sex with them is an insult to them and humiliation. It's the most horrifying thing a lot of women can think to happen to them. So especially girls, not who aren't even women yet, it's a horrifying thing. And it can be also painful and all that stuff. So it serves a great purpose all the way around. Also, guys like sex, so what the hell? If you're going to kill him, you might as well have some sex too. And I say this because it's the way certain people think. Now, but what if they don't have sex with the victims? Is it because the thrill of the kill is what they're really into? We also don't know that they do not get sexually excited by the murder, by what they've done. So just because they didn't have intercourse with the girls in some way, have physical contact with them sexually, doesn't mean they ain't sexually excited by what they did and are therefore some distance away having a good time by themselves. Why they're looking back and seeing what they've done, or later on when they're lying in their beds going, that was so cool, and they get off them. So just because you don't see a sexual assault as a crime doesn't mean that sexual component, the thrill part that they might have in their own minds, doesn't exist, but also doesn't need to exist. So clearly these girls there's no reason these girls were chosen other than for the excitement of the thrill kill. So nobody just showed up there to murder them because they had, secret information on the mafia. You know what I mean? An Odinist didn't show up to make them a cult. That's just nonsense crap. That it was some kind of ceremony and they were killed, and just garbage. Yeah, sometimes it's just fun to kill people. But we have trouble understanding that because we wouldn't do something like that. Really? But don't they usually say 3 pieces of evidence will convince a jury of guilt? Who says that? These days, I don't think it's hard as hell to get juries to be convinced of guilt. It's very, very difficult. They want a video. They want DNA. They want a video. They're not good with circumstantial evidence at all anymore, behavioral evidence. They're terrible with that. Because back in the old days, I don't know how old I'm going back to, but back in the days when DNA didn't exist and video cameras didn't exist, they had to go with almost 100% circumstantial and witness information. That's all they had. So a girl gets attacked, she's raped and murdered. What proof did they have? They had no DNA. They say, look, the girl was naked. She seemed to have abrasions on her body, so they could go with that kind of physical evidence. There's no witnesses who saw that, and there's no camera. So you can't GPS anything. You can't see if a car went down that road. There's none of that. They had to go with very, very circumstantial evidence. So now we have so much more. But now if you don't have this so much more, they don't want to believe it. They're like, yeah, unless we had that video, we're not going there. Let's see. Other comments. Oh, aren't you nice, Paul? It's always nice to have somebody say something sweet during one of these shows. I say I'm not used to doing public stuff, so. Psychotic or psychopathic? The old joke is Pat Brown comes on and she immediately says that guy's a psychopath. That's the way they want me to have merch that says you're a psychopath. We have a pretty good shirt, actually, you know what I mean? You do. That's true, Miss Chris. You have to follow the judge's instructions no matter what. So there's sometimes issues over the judge's instructions, and the defense team will definitely grab onto that later on if it's a way that they can say whatever. Trish says, don't they have more video footage? I don't know anything about that. All we know is the down the hill footage. So there might be, I hope the prosecution has some things up their sleeve that the defense is not talking about. If that's true, I'm going to be very excited. You know, it's like, thank God, you know. I'm just worried that they don't. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. I try, you know, people wonder why I have so much humor during my shows. It's because otherwise I just don't want to do them. You know, I enjoy living life, and you know, hopefully if I'm ever murdered, somebody like me will come out and they'll probably laugh during what they're talking about. And I'll accept that because I won't be here. But, you know, homicide, dealing with homicide on a regular basis, analyzing crimes and all that stuff has its, you know, that's serious stuff. But if I can't add a little levity here and there, you know, you know, I just don't want to do this job. I mean, it's just, you know, yeah. Some people don't appreciate it. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, as they say. Oh, that one. A Hitchcock, which I do love the name of. And why would they be placed with some weird scene, meaning the way the bodies were found? I don't understand. The defense is making a great deal over how things were placed, these branches and stuff. We don't, you know, it's a Rorschach test. You can claim anything. Sometimes a person who has killed somebody will do things because they find it amusing. They find it amusing. Oh, this is cool. It doesn't mean that it means anything. It's just cool to them. Or maybe they're just trying to cover up. Maybe they started covering up and they got tired of doing it. It's like, well, I was going to cover the bodies up, but it's just too much damn work and there's not enough branches. So sometimes you just don't know the entire thing. But to take those few branches and say, oh, that means it's an Odinist, some kind of ceremony thing, it's just nonsense. That's an interesting comment, Molly. Chief Justice Warren Burger says circumstantial evidence is the most damaging evidence there is because it's the most difficult to arrange. I think Warren Burger must have said that 50 years ago because it's being destroyed by defense teams everywhere. I'm not going to get into the abilities of the judge involved in those people because I really don't freaking know. Here's Silram. You're way too early with these statements. No, I'm not. You don't have a problem probably with the defense coming out and being all over television, coming out and saying all these things. Every single other channel is talking. The wait for the trial. I said that. I said what I see is that as far as I've seen so far, the evidence supports probable cause for arrest and for charging him. And now it's going to go to trial. So far, the evidence leans toward his guilt. And I said this, I will wait for the trial. More will come out. That is true. But hey, Silgram, why are you even here? If you have a problem with my statements, I'm assuming you think he's innocent. That's why you're saying that. because otherwise, why are you even here? If you want to wait for those trial, why are you even paying attention to any social media? Wait for the trial and watch the trial. If you can be here, I can be here. I tell you, people are funny. Anyway, but again, I have no moderator here, and this is not something I usually do, but UK people. Sky Ricky says Wendy Murphy is great. She did a thing. She made probably a mistake going on. Was it News Nation? And Turtle Boy was there, and she went off on Turtle Boy, and people trashed Wendy into the ground. They said, "Oh, she was so unreasonable," blah blah blah. And I was like, I'm 100% with Wendy Murphy on that. She was absolutely accurate, but there are a lot of Turtle Boy lovers, and so that whole case is going to be very interesting. The Karen Reed case, where she has been charged with running over a police officer boyfriend and killing him, leaving him to die. It's going to be an interesting case. But Turtle Boy, who has his own channel and has massive amounts of turtle followers, I won't use the word that everybody says I use way too often, but I would use it on him. Let's see. Handini, yeah, they could just be having a bad day. Psychopaths really don't need motive. The motive is always power and control. And on a bad day, this is actually true, Antini. When things are going well in their lives, a lot of times they can control themselves, but then when things go badly, they want to get power and control back. This gives them that feeling. And if you take a look at normal human beings, so you're like some guy, you're at work and your boss has just treated you like dirt. So you go to the bar and you try to pick up a woman. It's illegal. But it's kind of the same thing. All right. Kind of the same thing. Why did it take years to arrest him? Let's put it this way. The red herring, okay, we're talking about Keegan Kline. Keegan Kline was a massive red herring. It looked like it should be him to many people. And they interview person after person after person. It's not an easy job. And I don't know how good the original team was in spite of what the superintendent said that I just didn't agree with. You just got the detectives, whatever training they do or do not have, which is mostly do not have, they're doing their best interviewing people, and they may not catch whatever it is. And they're trying and they're trying and they're trying. And there's so many possibilities. The case was very difficult. And Keegan Kline was the big, huge red herring. I don't know. I don't want to diss the detectives working on the case because it's very difficult. And so everybody thinks every case can be wrapped up so quickly. It's not that way. And even if they have suspicions, they have to have enough proof, because if they don't have enough proof, the prosecutor won't take it to court, and then you're screwed again. So, it's very tricky. That's been stated a lot. His daughter looks a lot like Libby. I'm going to say probably a lot of girls in the area look a lot like Libby. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. Tina's saying this is sketchy. It's not sketchy. It's unfortunate. Unfortunate is different than sketchy. And this is what the defense, I think, is going to go really hard on corruption. The bullet was planted. They erased the things that were our suspects were on that, blah, blah, blah. That's why I think it's a slim chance. I think he has a good chance of not being convicted, because I think the defense is going to play that hard and heavy. I absolutely think that. The Odinist thing, Bogey says, defense attempt for the public. But do you know how many people believe it? That's the problem. That's why I say, even here, I know people in here, I see them in the chat room they believe that stuff. They fall for it. And it can be very convincing in many ways. I'm not saying that people who believe it are, nutcases or they're, a lot of them are very nice people who are like, oh, wait a minute, maybe this is true. Maybe this is the way it is. Because when you get a whole group of people, the defense team, pushing certain things, it starts looking very possible. Very possible. I mean, I had to look at it myself and consider it and try to see whether there was any validity in it. So the defense team was throwing stuff out there. If they throw enough stuff out there, here's the thing again. They throw the Odinist, and then they throw Ron. What's his name again? Throw him Ron Logan. And they throw Keegan Klein and say he could have still done it. Throw out the Odinists, I think, are their top ones, because I think somewhere in the early days they interviewed some people who are kind of wacky, and so I think they're going to go to that as the big, huge, hidden, our key suspects that they didn't properly interview, blah blah blah. They could have done it. So what they want to do is push away everything Richard Allen did, or that's linked to him, and just say, because we don't know what happened here, these guys may have done it. This is what happens a lot of time with the Innocence Project. They will dredge up somebody and say, the same thing as Scott Peterson. Well, there was a robbery, so what? It had nothing to do. All the evidence supports Scott Peterson killing his wife. But now they're coming up with a robbery for the Innocence Project. They're picking out some other people to say maybe this, and that's where they're, quote, reasonable doubt. It's not reasonable doubt, but it does work as reasonable doubt. So, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it works out. Oh, well, thank you, Sparks. Like a mold, maybe, but let me see if any other points here I want to look at before I sign off here. Silram is back again. Okay, let's see. I like that, Miss Chris. I'm into runes, and I don't believe that for a second. Come on. You can, that's the funny thing. There's nothing wrong with Odinists, particularly. You can have, it's funny. Odinists, oh my God, there's some white supremacist Nordic creepy dudes. They can't, it's okay if women want to run around, dance around a fire and call themselves white witches. You know what I mean? But it's not okay if some male guys want to call themselves Odinists. Why can't they have a feeling of spirituality by way of the historic views and the history of that part of the world? Why not? I mean, there's every country in the world has different spiritual viewpoints and different ceremonies and things that they do. So why is it okay? Like in Jamaica, you can have a thing called Kumina Rastafarianism. Those are two different things. Kumina is more of an African-oriented religion thing. And I went to one of those things once, and they killed some goats and cut their heads off in front of me. But anyway, and danced a lot. But anyway, it was in the night, and it was a ceremony. It was a Kumina ceremony that meant something to the people there, spiritual. But then there's Rastafarians in Jamaica, and they have a whole Rastafarian type of viewpoint on things. And then there are Christians in Jamaica who have a very Christian point of view. So what's wrong with the freaking Odinists? Why are they suddenly bad guys? You know what I mean? I mean, they can be Odinists, and they can have runes, but that doesn't mean it has anything to do with the crime. But if you can take any crime and look at details and start saying, I think these are the people who did it. And that's what the defense team did, so unfortunate. Well, yeah, there you go, Kelly. Is it possible the police needed to be really sure before arresting anyone? 100%. And also the fact that they cannot arrest without probable cause. They have to have enough evidence. I mean, you just can't go and arrest all kinds of people. And the prosecutor does not like that. The prosecutor wants to know, once you've arrested somebody with probable cause, that you also have enough to go theoretically to prosecution. Because he doesn't want to ruin his career, taking somebody to court and there's just nothing really to work. So yeah, they have to be very careful. It can go on for ages because they're trying so hard to make sure they have enough evidence. That a lot of times they will actually believe somebody did it for years before they even arrest the guy. So we just don't understand, a lot of times on the outside, no one knows what really goes on in law enforcement. They're not perfect people. There are law enforcement, some are just not as trained as they could be, and it's overwhelming, and some don't do such a great job, but a lot work their little hearts out around the clock trying to bring justice. Do you honestly think that the law enforcement involved in these little girls' killings didn't want to see the bad guy caught? Are you kidding me? They have teenage girls like this too, and probably ripped their hearts out. I know my daughter was a homicide detective. I know too many homicide detectives. They don't look at this and go, whatever. They don't look at it that way because they're working the case. Now, I'm a little bit more lighthearted. Why? Because I'm not working the case. It's not my case. If I were a detective on this case, I don't know, I'd sleep at night because it would come to me to find who did it. And I could work for years going insane trying to find who did it. And then I have everybody on the internet saying I didn't give a damn. And that's not true. I care greatly, but I just couldn't prove it, even if I knew who did it. And I, by the way, as a profiler, I have a few crimes where I know exactly who did it. And they didn't get arrested for it. And I've even had a couple which the wrong person was arrested. Does that bother me? Yes, it does. Can I always do something about it? No, I can't. Am I always, some people say, well, then you were just wrong about what you thought. And I have to take that hit too. But it isn't because I don't care. It isn't because I didn't try hard. And these detectives, I'm sure, worked their butts off. Jan says, hi, Pat, I think having a trial in a small town, Indiana, will guarantee a conviction. This conservative rural town feels betrayed by one of their own. Well, see, there's a problem here too, because that's another problem. No one should be convicting someone because of emotions. And that's the one, again, a reason I have a problem with that. Because a professional jury, when they're brought in, would not have great emotions toward anybody. And I, as a profiler, I can look at crimes very objectively without the great emotions being involved. But if you're, a lot of the juries are very emotional for one reason or the other. And that is not a reason to convict somebody. So you might have a point, as you said, if it's a rural town, they feel betrayed. Maybe a jury of his peers would convict him. I don't know. I'm just suspicious of it because I've seen too much go wrong in these cases where the defense attorneys can just throw so much at the wall that eventually the jury, all it takes again is one. And I don't know. I hope you're right. I mean, I don't want him convicted on emotion. I want him convicted on evidence. If he did it, I want him convicted on evidence and nothing else. I don't practice Santeria. I ain't got no crystal ball, but you're allowed to have it. Oh, that's true too. This is a good point, Kathy. I never heard of Odinist ritual killings. No, they haven't been known to kill anybody ritualistically. So this is, again, taking something completely out of character. It's like saying somebody who does fortune telling because they have a card that has a death card that means they kill people. This is just nonsense. It's just silly. Somebody asked, this is more, I think, of a if you knew the runes, you'd see them every day walking in the forest. You would, because things fall off the tree and they go, oh my God, it's that rune. It's like, that is true. Let's see. Kung Fu Panda says, many professions require a sense of humor. That's true. I mean, or maybe I'm just demented, but yeah. Live. What's the occasion, Amethyst? My lives, I do 8 lives a month for patrons only. I do 1 every week on the weekend, which is coming up this Sunday. I do them on specific cases people request. I analyze the cases, do a lot of research, and analyze the actual cases as crime scene analysis and criminal profiling. I do those on the weekend. Those are patron only. And during the week, I do a hangout, which is where all my patrons come together and they ask me about a lot of things that are happening that are short, a bunch of short stuff. I've decided to do some public lives because sometimes there's these cases where it's not a case. It's not a specific case. On the weekend cases, which are all kinds of different cases in the past. But this is usually something that's an ongoing. I've talked about Sebastian Rogers and Riley Strain, and I have done stuff before on Idaho as well. And I saw this morning on this, and I thought, I may do a few more open lives like this, but only on specific things that are just popular in the news that people keep. I see suddenly everybody talking about, and I'd like to shed some. Shed some light, bring some logic to. Discuss the issues as opposed to, I don't tell stories, I don't do news, but if there's some issues that I find interesting, I thought it'd be kind of nice to do this as a live show to the public. And this one especially, I was curious to see how many people come in and say, no, they think he's innocent. I'm just curious about that. Let's see. Wow. I don't know. You should do that. Thank you, Pat. I agree with you in every case you've done. I try to be logical and shed light on evidence and how I analyze it. I'm not always right. I point this out. I'm a human. It's my opinion. My analysis, my determinations are what I believe are based on evidence. However, I'm human, and I can analyze things incorrectly, as other profiler might say. But I believe that it's nice to have an ability to be able to present something so people can start understanding how to do it, especially detectives and people in criminal justice and regular people just wanting to understand how to analyze evidence. And some people don't agree with me on everything, and that's okay. Because I don't expect people to. I expect once in a while they're going to go, I don't see it that way. I appreciate that you're a professional profiler, but I just don't agree with you. And as long as you're polite and friendly, that's fine. But I thank you for thinking that. Oh no! Oh, I did do it. I did do an accidental live a long time ago, and it was actually also and ended up with super chat, and people were throwing money at me, and I was like, "What happened?" And somebody said, "Pat, you made it public," and I had no idea I'd done it. I clicked the wrong thing. No, this was purposely done. So yeah. It's okay to disagree. She doesn't bite, as long as you're polite. When you say things like that lady, that old crow, she's an idiot, then I block you. If I can. Sometimes I can't see it, so I can't respond. But as long as people are polite, I had somebody the other day come in and they were quite critical of my statement analyses on Sebastian Rogers' case on the Proudfoots. They said you're just fueling the things like you claim other people are doing. And he wrote a very critical but respectful analysis of my appearances and what I was doing. And I can't entirely disagree with them. I said, well, it's a reasonable opinion. I'll have to ruminate on it because I have reasons why I did it, but maybe you got a point. Yeah. Sometimes I'm not right. Hate it when that happens. Anyway. Oh, I'll never admit it. No. When have I been wrong? Oh, that's interesting. Stephanie says the same officers that investigate the Odin angle even said they don't believe the Odinists are involved in the Delphi case. The defense is exaggerated. I'm glad to hear that. But, the defense is still going to say that because it's one of those quirky things that if you can pull it off, just offering, see, you don't have to prove it if you're the defense. If you're the prosecution, you have to prove that this is true. The defense never has to prove it. They just have to put it out there to make people skeptical. That gives them what is called reasonable doubt. That's kind of a shame in the sense that one has to prove it and the other one just has to, play games. But it kind of works. Oh, good God, oh, Avery. Well, that dude, yeah, okay. There's a guilty as hell guy. And boy, a lot of people think he's innocent. So, aren't you sweet, Les? You guys are too nice. You guys are too nice. But I will say I'm glad to be on YouTube where I can actually knock out a sound bite that's like, Pat, you got 2 minutes. And then we cut you off. Well, the burden that is true. The burden is on the prosecution. I guess what bothers me, the prosecution should present enough evidence to convince the jury that the person is guilty. This is absolutely true. But we have gotten to a point where our defense mechanisms are such that the jury can no longer even hear the evidence of the prosecution because so much is thrown at them, so much nonsense. That's why I want a professional jury, because I would still say to the prosecution in this case, I want to make sure as a professional person that you prove it to me. Now I may believe from outside right now, because I'm not going to be on any jury. From the outside, I'm like, he looks pretty guilty to me from the outside, but I haven't heard all the evidence yet. This is true. If I were actually on a professional jury and I came in, I would want the prosecution to prove it to me that he is guilty. However, I also will not, like a civilian jury, fall for all the crap that the defense would throw out. And I'm going to say this. I think if we have professional juries, the defense wouldn't even bother with half the crap they do because they know we're just going to go, are you finished? Are you finished? Because we're not buying any of this garbage. So I think we would see shorter trials, more reasonable trials if we had a professional jury. But I think as long as the defense can wear down the jury, can throw anything out that they can throw out, whether it makes sense or not. Jose Bias, oh yeah, Casey Anthony's father was involved. Oh God, it's all garbage. And I would say in that case, the prosecution was sufficient, but it didn't matter. So there you go. Okay, this is okay. I'm not convinced yet. I'm going back and forth. That's okay. Because again, there is the point where the evidence is a little on the light side. I will agree with you with that. It's a little bit, we don't have, that's why I'm waiting for the trial to absolutely see what else do they have to convict him. I believe he's probably the guy, but do they have enough to convict him? And we'll have to see. So yeah, it's okay to not have your mind made up. That's fine. I don't object to that. What I wish what I would see is that people would not jump to some wild conclusions based on nonsense. Odinist stuff is nonsense. The rune stuff is nonsense. Whether he did it and there's enough proof, that's a whole different matter. So if you have questions on that, I'm okay with that. Well, thank you, Jan. Haters are going to hate. Yeah. It's the way the world. It's the way it is. If you put yourself out in the public eye, you're gonna get haters, and you get used to it. Every once in a while they get you, but most of the time, if you've been out long enough, you just have to well, whatever, Can't let it get you down. So, this is interesting. Okay. Richard Allen's defense team is collecting money for an expert fund because a judge is refusing it, and she was also not paying his attorneys in a timely way. I honestly can't comment on that. Again, I'm not part of the legal system. This will be something, one of the shows that has all the legal experts on. They might be able to comment on that. I feel kind of dense on those things. And again, as I say, I'm not watching every speck of this trial. I just saw this information come up today, and I thought I have something to say about this. I don't speak up unless I have something to say about something, and I don't. I say I'm not a news channel, and so a lot of stuff I haven't even talked about this case since. Geez, I think it's been a long darn time. Well, mostly when Carter was out there talking crap, I spoke up a few times because I was like, please stop doing it. I had something to say, but then I've been silent for a pretty long time. Same thing with the Idaho case. I haven't said anything for a really long time because there's all kinds of stuff is flying around, and I'm not getting involved in that. But when it comes to a point where there's something really strikes me, then I'll come out and say something. Yep, we have not seen the evidence yet. That is true. We'll have to wait for the trial. Absolutely. But the defense needs to shut the hell up. I think there should be a gag order. I don't like the fact that the defense is allowed to go onto YouTube, onto the news channels, and give leak evidence, not evidence, but leak stuff out to the public. That should not be okay, because what they're doing is they are attempting to destroy the prosecution's case before the jury is even picked. They're trying to sway a jury, the future jury, before they even get into the jury box. That should be illegal. That should not happen. If we need more decorum and more rules on how these things happen. I would prefer a 100% gag rule. That the defense and the prosecution. The prosecution is not talking about the case because they're not allowed to, but the defense is allowed to run rampant. They should be shut the hell up. If you want a true proper trial, gag order on the prosecution and the defense, let it go dead in the media, and then let the trial proceed. And if I'm part of that people can't speak up, that's fine. Because the defense they use the media and now YouTube and everybody else to get out whatever things they want to poison the future jury with. That should not be permitted. But that's the way it works. Yep. Yep. And so very, very, very annoying. Um, um, Jan says, this case is what brought me to your channel. Really? Okay. Thank you for your unbiased and unvarnished truth. We need more. And I always appreciate other channels that have detectives or profilers or crime scene analysts of some sort doing good analysis. So that we want more than one person's opinion. So we want to see how everybody views these things. I think that's valuable. So anyway, oh yeah, they ought to be. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. But anyway, that's what I want to bring out today. It's just like I hearing what I heard today, I am concerned that that the jury is going to be tainted going in. That because there are some slip-ups in the investigation, which I wish had not happened, less than quality work. But I say that's life. That things aren't perfect. That's going to highly influence the trial. And I don't want locals being over emotional to convict either. I just want a jury that is able to come in and not be hoodwinked by either side, and be able to evaluate the physical, behavioral, and circumstantial evidence in some way that is appropriate. So then we don't have to have, either he walks when he's guilty, or he's convicted when he's guilty, and then Innocence Project rolls in. But on the other hand, I don't want him convicted if he's innocent. So there you go. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this. Again, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. And if you'd like to be a patron to come to my normal 8 shows a month, click on the link below. As soon as I get off of here, I'll fix all that stuff up. But it's live, so I haven't done any of the description stuff yet, and I'll do that when I finish up here. So anyway, so thank you for being here. I appreciate it, and it's a new thing for me to do anything that's totally public, and it's been pleasant a couple times in a row. So I'm kind of shocked, and nobody was throwing money at me, so I feel okay. Although I do like the money part, no, but I'm not for super chat. So if you do want to contribute, the little dollar signs below, you can click on that or join Patreon, and that does keep the channel alive. And hit the subscription button, because the algorithm does like subscribers, and it keeps me going. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.